Hi, everybody. So, in this video, I'm going to go over everything we're doing for week 3, all the resources that there are, the assignments, and I'm going to walk you in a lot more depth in how to get through the databases, how to use the databases once you're there, and if you have any questions about how to log into it, where you can go to answer those questions and figure it out. So, this week is all about how to use the library, how to find sources, what is the process for doing the research, how do we research, all the stuff you're going to use for, of course, this class, but any of your other college courses, anytime you do research, these are the processes that you're going to be using. Even if you don't go to Marian Tech, no matter what college you go to, they're going to have a library with databases and they're going to use almost exactly the same. I've taught at a lot of different universities and they all look about the same. The login process is a little different, but how to use them, very similar. So the first link is a library presentation, and the library made this for all students for you to use to understand how to use and how to access the library link resources and pieces. So as you're scrolling through this, this first is going to go into sort of how you think of your ideas, come up with your supporting details, what you should be researching in the first place. This explains Boolean searching. I explained that last semester a little bit. And how you join your search terms. I'll explain it a little bit more as I show you how to do research on these databases here in a minute towards the end. And then this is what it looks like as you're getting to the OhioLink library. So you're choosing the OhioLink library catalog or the databases. You're choosing Marian Tech, that's your institution. I'll walk you through this again here in a second. Choosing Marian Tech, it gives you all the different database options that you can choose from. You're choosing which one you want to use. And then you log in, or you select your institution again 500 times apparently, and then you log in. So you're putting in your name and your university ID. You should have gotten your university ID when you were approved to be a student. If you do not know your university ID, you're going to need to ask your academic advisor. They would know your university ID. So for many of you, I do believe that's Ellie Hess. Within there, you should have gotten lots of emails from her at the start of the semester to make sure you were enrolled correctly, those different pieces. If you are struggling to figure out your ID, let me know and I will give you the email address of the person you need to contact. Or if you have a contact at your home school that you're working through, they might be able to help you as well. But you need your ID to be able to log in. Okay. And this is so you can access it off campus. If you went to the Marian Campus College and you're logged onto their Wi-Fi or you're logged onto one of their computers, then you don't need to do this whole rigmarole sign in because you would sign into one of their computers and automatically be able to use them. Okay. So I want you to go through this presentation on your own, take notes about how to access it, what it looks like, what you're using. After you go through the library presentation, this link right here is also going to explain how to use those databases and how to log on. So it explains how you're using it through Marian Tech, how they work. And again, if you have any questions as you're going through the library, so recently I wasn't sure what my ID was, even though I've worked here for a little bit. I forgot it. So I emailed the Marian Tech library and they were able to help me very, very quickly. So if you email or call them, they're going to real quick help you get you whatever you need because they helped me. Okay. So once you're done going through that, then you have this sort of explains another option. So this is another option if you struggle bus to log in to the Marian Tech databases. This is another workaround. So we talked about InfoHio last week. I'm going to baby step you through InfoHio again, just to show you another option. I'm going to show you Google Scholars again, just to show you another option. So if I was you, I would suggest having a Google Doc or an email or something where you have a running list of where you can access all these databases to do research. This is the Ohio Library for all the state of Ohio. So it's not like Ohio State, the university, but the state of Ohio has this free library for all citizens to use. Okay. They don't have as nice of an access to journal articles, which is what you typically would want to use in a college class, but they do have access to a lot of different sources for free to Ohio residents. And this sort of just explains step by step how you can access their databases, how you can use it as one of your research tools. Once you get into more research, especially once you get into like your content courses and you're researching about nursing or phlebotomy or engineering or whatever you're going into, you're going to realize you have to use a lot of different places to find what you want. So you might go to the OhioLink databases and they don't have exactly all the resources you need. So now you're going to go to the library.ohio.gov one. on here to see if you have anything there. Oh, they didn't have enough there, so I'm going to go to Google Scholar. So you realize in your research, you can't just, it's not a one and done. You have to go to a lot of places to find what you need to be able to answer the questions, support your argument, or be thorough in what you're trying to get across and learn and prove that you've learned within your courses there. So I would make a list of all the different places you can go to find research. And you may find one that's your preference. So InfoOhio is one of my preferences, but I work with them. I'm a coach through them. So it's a preference because I work with them a lot. I'm very familiar with it. I also got really familiar with Bowling Green's databases. I taught and was a student at Bowling Green for more than 10 years. So those were my preferences because I used them a lot. So as you start using a lot of these places, you're going to find you have a lot of preferences, and you'll find one that you use the best and you like the information you're finding there a lot. So make a list of all those different pieces. So once you've gone through that one, and as you're going through each of these, I suggest play around and do searches about random topics, things you're interested in. I gave you a couple topics in last week's assignment in the citation practice, but maybe just do random searches and get used to doing searches and finding information and how can you find more specific information. So when we get into actually assigning an essay and you have a topic, you're familiar with trying to find a lot of different things. Okay, so I might just do a bunch of research on mythology, find a bunch of myths, and just play around and see what you can find there. So when you have to do it and you're on a time crunch because you have a due date for the assignment, you're familiar with the research process. Because this week there isn't tons of assignments, there's not tons of big assignments. So this would be a good week to just play around with all these databases and get familiar with them. Because while these first couple weeks are going to be pretty chill because we're just getting a lot of information and we're trying to sort of absorb all this information, take notes. You should have some sort of note system for this where you're keeping everything, whether it's a Google folder, a Microsoft Outlook folder, a physical folder, a notebook, whatever it is. You're absorbing a lot of information these first couple weeks. When we get to about week 5, week 6, you're going to have about a paper a week. Okay, they're not massive papers, but you're going to have a lot of going on. It's going to be very quickly paced. So use this time in these first couple weeks when it's a bit slower paced to really familiarize yourself with all this information and ask any questions that you have. So when you're feeling the heat of the time crunch, you're ready and you're prepared for it. The next one, Scholarly Research Explained, that you'll be going through and again taking notes over. I gave you a link to the Sheridan College library page. They do a fantastic job of explaining all the different steps for research. So how you plan your research, your brainstorming, different search strategies of where would be the best places to do that research and figuring that out. How to choose resources, how to choose databases, what scholarly sources are, why we would use them in the first place, how to evaluate a site. So yes, we want you to use those scholarly sources the most, those journal articles from databases, but sometimes websites are great too. Sometimes a documentary is great too, but you have to be able to evaluate it. Is it a credible source? So this is going to be an important question to ask when you're choosing those pieces. Review on citing your sources, but we went over that all last week. So this is a great place to reference, has a lot of information. Again, I'll be putting it in your notes to have and refer back to for all your future assignments. And then the last one, and maybe the most important one, is the MTC plagiarism policy. It's on page 10, and I noted it up here in like how I titled the document, page 10. So you're just going to scroll. And of course, you should go through the whole handbook because this entire handbook applies to you, even though you might be a CCP student and your home school is whatever high school. Everything in this handbook still applies to you as an MTC student as well. So you should become familiar with what applies to you. And the plagiarism policy is definitely the biggest one. The plagiarism policy also then could potentially affect your academic warning and your academic standing. So I would also peruse that one as well. So be familiar with the plagiarism policy because you have to follow it. And then when you signed and said you were going to be a student, you signed and agreed that you would follow this policy. Okay. So those are all the sources for this week. Once you've gone through the sources, then you're doing a library quiz and you're doing a discussion that's just reflecting on your learning. Because like I said, other than the quiz, this week really has no big assignments. So this discussion just asks you to sort of parse through. You've gotten a lot of information in this first 3 weeks. We've gone over a lot of citation, databases, a lot of different pieces, plagiarism. So what all information did you gain that you're like, that was easy peasy, that was review looning, I didn't even need it? And what was new and you're still kind of struggling with? What do you need more assistance with? Where are you at? with all this information. So it gives you a chance to really parse through what all did you learn. And then it gives me a chance to see where are areas that I need to provide more resources, maybe more videos, what different things. So like here in a minute, I'm going to walk you through using the databases. I wasn't going to do that again this week, but a lot of you kind of came and said, hey, I need more information. So I'm adding on to this video. So based on this discussion you're posting, I'm going to adjust and add more pieces to future weeks to make sure you're prepped and ready for when we start doing the bigger essays and assignments. Okay. So 2 assignments for this week after you've gone through everything. Now, I'm going to walk you through how to use the databases on Marian Tech's website. And then I'm going to walk you through InfoHio, and then I'm going to walk you through Google Scholar again. Those are my top 3 databases. I gave you a 4th one in the modules for this week, so you could add that one as well. But the 3 I want to go over right now are my favorite and the ones I would use the most. Okay. So MTC, that's your main one. And as an MTC student, you get these for free. So another way to explain it, all these databases, think of them like companies. And these companies have paid all these journals and these articles, they've paid the authors to hold their articles. So like I published something a few years ago and BGSU holds it. They own it. Okay. So on their databases, you can find what I've published through them. Okay. But if you go through another database, you might not find it because they don't own it. So each database has different articles, it has different resources because those companies have paid to have those resources. Okay. Um, so you're choosing your databases based on what they have. That's why you do a lot of different research on different databases because they might not own it. They might not own the article that you actually need. So the benefit is that Marian Tech has paid for these databases. They said, hey, we're going to have all these numbers of databases that you as Marian Tech students can use for free. Okay. It's like included in your tuition when you pay tuition, basically. So that you don't have to go out and pay for this article. You can get it for free from Marian Tech. Okay. So, and again, like if you were to go on and if you have to get published or like if you have to do a presentation on something you've learned, you're doing all this research, and instead of paying for the research, you can get it for free. So that's why they're here through any university you go to. Okay. I clicked on the wrong thing. So to get there, you hover over campus and you click on library. Okay. And it's going to take forever to load. Okay, so you're here at the library page. Again, if you have any questions, it's all right here that you can email them, you can call them, or they might just have it explained in one of their tabs. Okay, so this is the main library hub. You're then going to click Research Databases. You then have to click which institution you're part of, apparently 500 times. It's just in case. There we go. So you click Marian Tech. Now, you're choosing between the OhioLink and the Marian Tech College databases. Again, OhioLink just links to all other universities. So, again, my dissertation that I had published, it might be on OhioLink, but it is probably not on the Marian Tech College databases. Okay. I, again, would just prefer to use the databases there. OhioLink is usually used for physical texts. So, if BGSU has a book that you really need to use, they could then send it to Marian Tech and you can pick it up there. So I think the databases is the best place for us to go. So we're here. There's a ton of databases. They're organized alphabetically and by subject. I'm going to tell you to click databases by subject. Okay. So if you were doing a paper on the struggles of nursing, or you're doing a paper on state testing in education, you're choosing the abouts topic you're going with. Okay. Now, most of your paper topics will probably have multiple subject topics as well. If I want to argue that state testing should be canceled, that you guys as high school students shouldn't have to take the AIR exams, I'm definitely going to click on education and choose some education databases. But I'm probably also going to go here and click on some psychology ones too, because I think I might want to argue about the mental impact of time testing on students. So when I do my research, I'm going to have to go to a couple different databases. Research is not a one and done. You're not just going to Google and being done with it because it's not giving you the best sources. The best argument has sources from a lot of different areas to support what you're saying. Think anytime you've gotten an argument with your friend, your sibling, your parents, the times that you've won usually are the times that you've really prepared yourself with all the different potential things they're going to come at you with. That I've got this, I talked about, like, I researched how much it was going to cost and what I could do with it. And you had all the research you did with it. It's the same thing. But instead of just researching your own personal experiences with it, you're researching from a lot of different experts and what they've done. Okay. So I'm going to go to psychology. We'll go to that one. Okay. So notice it's got these little locks here. Okay. The locks mean that you can access this off campus. Okay. Some of these you can only access on campus. Okay. So I'm going to click the little lock one, Psychology and Behavioral Sciences Collection Off Campus Access. And it's usually going to give you a little blurb about what is a part of that uh, database. I lost the word for a second. So I click it, and it takes forever to load. There we go. Okay, well, apparently I'm already logged in, and I don't need to log in again. It will, so if you're not logged in, it's going to then ask you to give your name and your university ID. And I think it's like your name has to be your last name, then your first name, and then your ID. This is where if you don't know your ID, you need to tell your academic advisor through Marian Tech, or let me know and I will tell you who your academic advisor is and tell you what email to send it to so you can figure this out. So while we're not doing, like, you're not doing an essay this week, so you don't have to have a bunch of resources for an essay, this is the week to ask those questions. Because if we're in week 7 and we're doing a big research essay and you're going, Looney, I have no idea what my university ID is, I can't access the databases, I'm going to say, well, I told you to do it in week 3. Use this time, because sometimes, I was lucky the library emailed me very quickly last night, but if they're busy, it might take a couple days. And you don't want to be stressing yourself out trying to get an ID to do your research when you could have asked weeks ago. So figure it out this week to save yourself the stress in weeks to come. Your future self will thank you. Okay. So once you're at any database, most of them will look about the same. Some will look slightly different. EBSCOhost, if it's an EBSCOhost brand, it all looks the same. I clicked on advanced search and it pulls down the Boolean search. All Boolean is you're using keywords to get the best possible resources. Think of it like math for researching. If my topic is on state testing, and I want to argue that state testing should be canceled, okay, I've got it. If I just typed state testing should be canceled, okay, it's going to give me way too many sources because it's going to look up every single source that has the word state, every single source that has the word testing. Well, every single source that has the word testing is going to talk about alcohol testing and drug testing and testing to get into a hospital, da da da. So a lot of it's going to have nothing to do with what I want. So Boolean searching ensures that you get exactly what you want and not a bunch of crap that doesn't pertain to what you're searching for. So the first thing I'm going to put is testing, but I'm going to type the word test and then put the asterisk on it. Okay, so that little starry thing, if you hit shift and 8, the little starry thing that pops up, by doing that, I'm telling the program to look up the word test and testing and tests and tested. Okay, all forms of the word test. So that way, if somebody wrote an article about doing state testing in their title, I'm going to get that article. But if they just use the word state tests, then I'm also going to get that article. So the asterisk ensures that you're getting all forms of that word when you're doing the search. So it opens up your search. Okay. Notice here, I got this little drop down. I can choose between and or and not. What and does, think of it like a plus sign. So it says that anything you search for has to have both this word and this word. They have to be together. So if I put school, okay, so now it's not going to look up anything except tests in schools. It's not going to look up drug tests. It's not going to look up license tests, just school and tests. Okay. I'm also got another and I'm going to put graduation if I can spell. Okay. Because I also want the graduation tests. I don't want the 3rd grade test. I want to talk about the high school tests. Okay. Depending on what your topic's about. So your ands, they both shrink and expand your search. It makes your search very specific. Because if I just did test, I'm getting tons of stuff still. But now I'm going from test to schools and tests. And then I'm going from schools and tests to graduation and schools and tests. So you're shrinking the amount of sources you're getting, but that's a good thing. Because if you hit search on Google and get 5 billion resources, you are not looking at all 5 billion resources. I doubt you click to the second page and see what's on the second page. So by doing the Boolean searching and splitting up your search terms like this, what you're doing is ensuring that that first page you look at, because we know you're not going to the second one, the first page has the best sources that you would need. Okay. And this can take some playing around sometimes, especially if you're like just figuring out your topic. You might have to play around with the words you use a couple different times to finally get some good sources. Okay. So the other options in here, we have or expands our source. So if I do graduation or um, completion, okay, because I know a lot of the times we talk about like completing your high school program and like the steps. There's different opportunities on how you can graduate. So I'm gonna put or completion. So you have to make sure the words that you want ors for are next to each other. So if I put completion next to test, it's going to look for everything with test or completion. Okay, but I want it graduation or completion because those are the two similar ones that I want to open it up. Another way to think of this, when you're writing a paper or thinking of a topic, some people may not use the same phrases that you use um, to discuss the topic within there. So with test, I could also put the word assess, okay, because I'm assessing your skills, but I'm testing your skills too. So some people might use the word assess instead of test, okay. So that's what or does. It opens up your topic again. So and is shrinking, or is opening it up again, making more options. The last option is not, and this shrinks it massively. Okay. So I usually save my nots until after I've hit the search button at least once. So I might hit search from here and it's going to give me sources on a bunch of state tests for Europe and England and India. Well, I don't want those because I don't have the experience over there. So I only have experience here in Ohio and the US. I only want to talk about Ohio state testing. Okay, so I'm going to put not Europe. Okay? And I don't know if that's going to pop up yet or not, but you're not. So as you hit search the first time and you realize there's a bunch of resources that you do not care about, go back up into your search and add some knots or add some other words. Okay. So this is something, all of your keywords that you're adding when you're doing your research, I always would keep like a notepad next to me while I did my search and just write what words I'm using so I can keep track of it. So if I needed to go back and do it again later or add and play with them, or maybe I read one article and they had some like some terms in there that I thought would be good to search, I could add it to my list. So I always kept track of the words I used to make sure I could find my sources in the best way and add and play around with it. So that's what Boolean searching is. You do it with any database. You can do this on Google to make sure you get the best Google sources. You should be using Boolean searching on anything you use to try and find the best sources. Okay, so that's Boolean. So if we scroll down a little bit, you've also got like sort of these other options. You can get a lot more specific with what you're searching. I think most of it's kind of unless you're getting like 5 million sources and you're really trying to be super specific. I just ignore most of it personally. The thing you do have to click on is EBSCO full text only. So right here in the far left side. Okay. So EBSCO full text only, you're clicking that check mark box. What you're doing, sometimes the database will say, hey, this source exists, but we don't have it anymore. We lost the contract for it. We didn't pay for it anymore. You can't look at it, but we had it. And that sucks because you might have read the summary and you're like, this would be an amazing source to have. Oh, I can't look at it. And it just kind of bogs down your search. That doesn't help at all. So I always click EBSCO full text only to make sure when you hit the search button, you're only getting sources you can actually see and look at. Okay. So we click that and then we hit search. Okay. And I've got 5,000 sources. That's still a whole bunch of sources. I would probably go ahead and add some more search terms in there because I'm not looking at page 2 of 5,000 sources. But maybe take a second to peruse and go through. So you can also change the date. So here on the left-hand side, it says 1945. That's far. So I don't want to source from 1945. I'm not talking about state testing from there. I'm going to go only as far back as maybe like 2013. Okay. I'm going to type in that date. And now I'm down to 2,000 sources. That's way better than before. So over here on the left side is how you can continue to shrink the sources you're seeing and be a lot more specific to what you need. So You've clicked on whatever source you want. So if you are still finishing the citation practice from week 2, which is open until end of this week for the late policy, you could do your Flint water crisis with here as well. So here's my source. Okay. Here's the issue on this one. I clicked full text only. The full text isn't here. It says find it, and you could find it using this button. Here's my thing. I don't have the patience for that. I might close and find something else. This one does not have the find it button underneath it, and it says PDF underneath it. So I know the full text is there. So I'm going to click it if I think it works well. So now, here's my full text. Here's my summary so I can make sure it works. Again, don't do research and read 500 articles and only use 2. Skim the abstract, skim the summary, see if you could use it in the first place, and if you can't, skip it, move on. If you can, fantastic. Once you've decided you really like this one, if you click on PDF, it'll give you the downloadable PDF. I suggest downloading it to your computer so you can save it. You could print it if you have access to a printer. And this is the article. I'll move my camera for a second so you can see the other part. So the other part to this, on the right-hand side, once you have an article that you like, these are all different ways to save your source. So the first one I show you is the permalink. So at the very bottom, there looks kind of like a paper clip or an infinity symbol. So you're going to click on that, and it pops up a permalink right here. That is your permalink. So like if you don't want to lose your source, that's the link you need. That will make sure you don't lose it. If you go up here and copy paste that link at the top, it's just going to take you back to the library sign-on page. It's not going to take you to the article. This link takes you to the article that you need. So the permalink, you should have a running document when you do research that has the links for all of your documents, all of your resources, so you can go back and find them. And along with those links, you should have the citations for them. Anytime I do research, the moment I choose a source, I cite it. So it's one and done. Like I already have the citation. I can build my works cited. It's super easy. If you get all your sources from these databases, it cites it for you. So you don't have to stress about if you did it right or not. Okay. So I clicked on this little yellow legal pad here on the right side, and it pulls up every form of citation. So if you're doing APA this semester, APA is right there. If you're doing MLA, MLA is right there. So it does it for you, and you don't have to stress about it. So that's the benefit of using the databases. Okay, and that's the basics of how to use them. Okay, so I'm now going to show you InfoHio again. So if you're like, I kind of liked InfoHio better, you can become familiar with that one. And this one is built for high school students specifically, so it might be a lot. InfoHio is kind of like the baby step into databases. You should be using InfoHio in your high school years, and then if you're familiar with InfoHio, it makes using the college databases a lot easier, a lot more familiar. So it's infohio.org. So just one in the middle, InfoHio. Once you're there, you click 9 through 12. And again, if you're on your school's Wi-Fi, you should automatically be logged in. If you're not, let me know, because since I work with them, I can figure out your school's login and password to make sure you have access to this, because this is free to all Ohio students. Okay. So here is your list of databases. So remember Marion Tech, we had that big old list. Let me pull it up again. We had this big old list of databases. This was all of our databases. It's a lot. InfoHio does not have near as many. Okay, it's a lot more, it's not as overwhelming when you look at all. And each database, though, is again by subject. So if you were doing a paper researching literary, so if you're doing a paper on Shakespeare, okay, or on The Crucible, or on Twilight, I don't know, you're looking at the Literary Reference Center. It's going to have literature-based research. If you're doing a science-based topic, okay, so if you want to research artificial intelligence, you're going to go to one of the science-based topics. So you're choosing which database you use based on your topic. If your topic doesn't really fit into any of these, the one that I use the most is this one, Points of View Reference Center. So right here in the middle. Points of View Reference Center is a database built specifically to have articles and resources about debatable topics. So topics that have multiple sides. So you're not going to find an article about knitting, because nobody's going to argue about knitting. They might, but you're not going to find a lot of debate about it. So you're going to find highly debated topics on Points of View Reference Center. This is a great place to go to if you cannot figure out what topic you want to argue about. Okay, and you're just trying to figure out a topic, because if you click on internet and distance learning, which we all have experience with from the days that we don't speak about anymore. So you click on it, it gives you a summary of what the argument is, what it's about. And then over here on the right-hand side, it's like, oh, here are 2 articles you might like about this topic. And then over here on the left side, it goes, oh, here are some other articles about this topic that you might like. So it's helping you do the research, okay? And you advance search just like I did on any other database. I make sure full text is clicked, and then I add in all of my search terms. So what was it? Education, if I can spell, and testing. So if your database doesn't give you the drop downs like our first one did, you just have to physically type in those in between words and make sure it's all caps. So my and has to be all caps, because if I don't all caps it, it's going to literally search for the word and that's literally every article in existence. So you have to make sure you all caps it. So I'm going to put or assessment. Okay, we'll be brief. I'm going to hit search. Okay, 186,000 is far too many. So if I was really doing this research, I would add way more search terms. But it should look very similar to how you did your research on the other databases. You're cruising through, you're changing the date if you need to over here, choosing whichever one you want. Let's say, oh, I don't know. Let's go with testing economics. Sounds good. It has the PDF again. It has your summary, so you can decide if you want it. This one also has where it will read it aloud to you. So that's a benefit as well. And just like the other one over here, I've got a permalink option. I click it, and that's the permalink I save. And it has the citation option with that little yellow legal pad. I click it, and I can cite it easy peasy. I don't have stress about it. So I would literally just take and copy paste up, and my works cited is done. Okay. So that is there for you for InfoOhio. Play around with that one. The last one I want you to play around with is Google Scholar. Here's the downside of this one. You cannot be as specific when you search, and you're probably going to come up against some that cost money. So it will go through and say, hey, this article is fantastic, but you got to pay $30 to read it. Do not pay money to read an article. If you can't find a free one, version of that specific article, just find a different source. It's not worth it to pay money. You're not getting your doctorates at this point in time. So it's not worth it to go out and pay money for this article when you have these free databases we have to us. But Google Scholar works the same. So I will do testing and state. Let's add anxiety. We'll go different route. I cannot type today. Here we go. Okay. I have 3 million results. That's a lot. That's one of the biggest downsides to this. You're going to get tons. And over here on the left-hand side, that's as much as you can do to shrink it. There's not a whole lot of options. Let's click on this one, see if we like it. And it's not going to look as similar as the other databases. So this one, luckily, has a PDF version of it. I'm going to click on it, see if it actually... Oh, nope, I see I got to pay money for it. And I'm not paying money. So I'd have to go through a lot more to find ones that are potentially free and I could actually use. And you will probably have to cite these ones yourself. They don't always have the citation option for you when it comes to it. So these are all the different places you can go to for your databases to do your research and get everything you need. So go for this week. Go through all the resources, the library, PowerPoint, all those different information about how to use OhioLink. Go through it, maybe follow along with me and do your own research with it. Make sure you understand the plagiarism policy. And then your 2 assignments you have to submit is the library quiz and the reflection on learning. Okay, those 2. Along with those assignments, you need to be playing around with these databases. Figure out how they work. Make sure you have your university ID. Maybe if you have another class where you're learning about a new topic, research that topic, see what you can find, or just research something you're interested in. But become familiar with these databases and ask me any and all questions you have about using them. This is our time to figure out how this information works, how they function, how you can use them without the time crunch of also writing and researching for a paper. Okay, so let me know if you need anything. Stop. But you have a fantastic week.